The Platypus praise, Penny weak, Beckles, and the shameless art of discovering grief only in opposition. How many times Penny Beckles prayed for mothers who lost children to violence between 2015 to 2025? Exactly 0. On Mother's Day 2026, opposition leader Penelope Weak Beckles posted a statement offering prayers for mothers who lost children to violence in Trinidad and Tobago. It was eloquent. It was polished. It was spectacular in its hypocrisy. For a decade, from 2015 to April 2025, Beckles and her PNM held the reins of power. The murder count climbed, mothers wept, and young lives were extinguished on street corners, in communities, and in the shadow of a government she loyally supported, defended, and enabled. Not once did she issue a public prayer for those grieving mothers. Not one statement. Not one vigil. Not one tear shed publicly for women who buried their children while her party held power. The silence was deafening. The indifference was institutional. But now that the PNM sits in opposition, the prayers flow and the empathy overflows. Now Beckles speaks of wounds borne by our entire nation. Now she warns us never to become numb to violence. Now she finds her voice, her faith, and her backbone, conveniently on Mother's Day, from the comfort of the opposition benches. This is not leadership. This is political performance art from a woman who is the political equivalent of a platypus, a strange, soft creature that defies classification, with no stomach for tough decisions, no spine for principled opposition, and no belly for the fight the people genuinely need. Between 2015 and April 2025, thousands were murdered. Children were slaughtered. Mothers broke. Communities collapsed. Beckles was a senior PNM figure who presided over every one of those deaths. She issued no prayers then. She held no vigils. Prayer, it seems, only becomes available to Penny Beckles when she is no longer responsible for the conditions that necessitate it. That is not faith, it is cowardice dressed in scripture. She never once publicly broke with her party on the catastrophic crime situation, never demanded accountability from her own government, and never called out ministers who failed communities drowning in violence. A leader with spine holds her own party accountable. A platypus just flaps along with the current. Since becoming opposition leader, Beckles has produced no credible crime plan, no policy framework for community safety, and no legislative proposals to address the structural conditions that breed violence. Her social media statements are abundant. Her policy output is 0. There is something deeply offensive about using the grief of bereaved mothers for political repositioning. Inserting personal loss into a statement about mothers who lost children to crime under her party's governance is not empathy. It is appropriation. It is emotional manipulation by a politician desperate to appear relevant in opposition. She has never challenged the PNM's legacy of broken promises on law and order or crime control. Under PNM governance, Trinidad and Tobago became one of the most dangerous countries in the hemisphere per capita. Beckles never forced her party to answer for those failures. She defended them. She chose party over people. Every single time. Her statement warns against becoming numb to violence, remarkable from a woman institutionally numb to violence throughout her party's tenure. What she calls for now, protecting youth, building strong homes, community involvement, are the precise things her government underfunded, undermined, and abandoned. The statement is not policy. It is confession dressed as compassion. She is describing the society PNM governance created, and she silently endorsed. She prays for greater unity, peace, and hope. This from the representative of a tradition that systematically exploited ethnic division and community neglect for political advantage. An opposition leader's job is to hold government to account, scrutinize budgets, demand answers in parliament, and build the case for change. Beckles' opposition is defined by carefully worded, strategically timed social media statements. It is opposition as performance, leadership as content creation. The mothers of slain children do not need tweets. They need someone willing to fight for systemic change with the ferocity their grief demands. Beckles does not lead an opposition untethered from the crisis she laments. She leads the very party that created it. For her to speak about protecting children is the arsonist attending the memorial and delivering the eulogy. The audacity would be admirable if it were not so insulting to every mother who lit a candle for a child killed under PNM governance. The most powerful thing she could have done on Mother's Day 2025 was not pray, but apologize. To say, "Under my party's watch, we failed you. We failed your children. We failed this nation. And I am sorry." She did not. She will not. Because doing so would require what she does not possess: a spine, a stomach for accountability, and the belly to face a decade of governance failure. Instead, she prays. And in that prayer, she reveals everything about who she is and who she is not. Penny Week Beckles is the political platypus of Trinidad and Tobago. She has the title of opposition leader but does not oppose with conviction. She has the language of compassion but did not exercise it when courage was required. She has the platform of leadership but leads toward no destination the people can identify. She is an invertebrate, no spine against her own party's legacy, no stomach for the accountability real leadership demands, and no belly for the fight the mothers of this nation have waged alone, without her prayers, for a decade. They needed her voice when her party was failing their children through neglect, underfunding, and the systematic abandonment of community safety. They needed an advocate, not a politician. They needed accountability, not eloquence. They needed action, not artful posts calibrated for maximum emotional impact at minimum political cost. At WZYE-TV, we noted her count: 0 prayers for 10 years of PNM-supervised carnage. The grief of a bereaved mother is not a political prop. The mothers remember. The nation remembers. And WZYE-TV will never let them forget. WZYE-TV, Caribbean News, no filter, no fear.